All right. Hello, everyone. Today is May 31st. This is the SIG Release biweekly meeting. This is a meeting that will be recorded and available on the internet, so please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which generally equates to be awesome people. So we're going to get started. We've got a few topics to cover. And the first one is actually related to what I said about it being a bi-weekly meeting. So what was mentioned in the SIG release engineering subproject meeting last week was that we do kind of the meetings are almost interchangeable, based on topics and whatnot. So what we were thinking is it might be more advantageous, definitely for the leads who kind of spread across different time zones, but really for everyone involved, to consider having the meeting as a weekly meeting instead, but with the alternating weeks being either US West based or closer to EU time zone. So that should give an opportunity for more folks to get involved in the meetings. We have not landed on times just yet, but if you have questions, comments, please drop them in the issue that is linked in the notes. That is 1912 on the SIG release repo. And I'll actually do is just quit a few things and share my screen.
How long are you going to keep it open for comments, Stephen?
So what I'm thinking is we mentioned it on the release engineering meeting, which is not officially official. And what we'll do is we're mentioning it here now. The comment period will not start until after this meeting and after we send out an email to the mailing list to call for comments. And I figure we keep it open for a week after that. I think the leads and I have to sync on convenient times to run the meeting, and then we'll kind of get some notional times after that. We could consider holding this time slot, but I think between the various community meetings that are that we have both in this community and elsewhere, that we should sit down as a group and kind of kick around some ideas before publishing. So we'll note that we'll kind of call for comments after this meeting, and we'll keep that open for at least a week, and then we'll send some updates on the outcome. And Mohammed, yes, the meeting did disappear from the calendar. I sent a note about that on the mailing list a little earlier. So I figured it didn't make sense to reinstate the meetings on the calendar until we solve when the meeting times are actually going to be. So once those are decided, we will send out updated calendar invites. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay.
I just have one minor concern, which I'll throw in as a comment on the issue, is that for people who struggle with when is the meeting on, every other week inconsistency can be a bit of a challenge. So sometimes you arrive and the meeting's not on, and you go, oh, okay. So to mitigate against that, announcements in Slack will be appreciated.
We'll also call it something different.
Yeah,
it'll be like the something EU meeting or something.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah,
so it'll be clear. But yeah, I think in addition to calling for agenda topics and stuff, we have a calendar invite to call for agenda topics, which has been deleted, but we'll add it back. But we can additionally add a calendar. We can add a Slack reminder as well that just reposts the meeting agenda and the time for that week.
Yeah, I think this is the dyscalculia thing I have with times and time zones and meetings, but chattiness helps with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think it's different strokes for different folks, because like for
sure,
me, for me, I'm not watching the channel at all unless I get added.
Yes.
So like the count, so I'm calendar driven, but also time zones are the worst, and
Yeah.
we're dealing with like some people are in daylight savings, and then and then sometimes it's not, and then if say Australia, New Zealand is on their time zones, on their daylight savings, then it goes in like different directions. It's like the time is awful, but
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
I have a there's one of the things I realized that this KubeCon is that you can have non-leader, non-community fame privilege, which means you can fly under the radar and keep an eye on Slack and stuff like that. But yeah, that's not the same for everybody.
yeah. Once you escape once you escape like more than 2 or 3 Slack workspaces, is like it all goes out of the window.
Yeah.
All right, so any other questions on that stuff before we move on? All right, so I skipped this part, but let's go back and do it. So one of the recurring topics that we have is we'd like to welcome any new attendees or members to the SIG or to the meeting. So if you are new here and would like to say hello, what you're looking to get out of this meeting, if you don't want to say anything, that's cool too. But yes, come say hi.
Hi, I'm Mike Lieberman. So I'm here from the Security Technical Advisory Group from the CNCF, just seeing where we can potentially collaborate.
I was at KubeCon Europe on the DANCon scholarship, and there I got to know about SIG Release and some of the activities they do. I also met Stephen, and I got motivated to attend some of the SIG release meetings. And at the moment, I saw that the release team for 1.25 was being assembled. So I was hoping to probably be a shadow in that one or the next release. So yeah, I got some of contributing a bit too.
Welcome, Michael and Rashid. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Mohammed. I'm a bit new around here, but I'm working with Arnaud from SIG Infra. I'm also looking at any of the interesting pieces of work, and I've already picked up something that I'm working with Sasha. So yeah, let's see where it goes.
Welcome, Mohammed. Anybody else want to say hi? All right, let's hit the next discussion topic. That is Rob. You want to take it away?
Sure. So just to kind of reintroduce myself, because I've been away for a few months, I have worked on the CI Signal team, and I was the second person who had a crack at reporting on the activity of CI Signal over the course of a release, and we've had an excellent contribution from Leonard, who has written a report to report on those issues that the CI Signal team are flagging as being flaky tests, and the chasing up that's done on those. So this report is kind of a tracking report that just tracks that team's activity. And I think Sasha reviewed it. It's in the release repo at the moment. So that report is there to be run manually, and I think it has been run manually over the past since Leonard has developed that report. Now, I've taken on an issue to automate the running of that report. as a next iterative step, going from running that manually and publishing that in Slack to running it on the regular. Our initial thoughts are that we run it once a week. And in looking at this, I looked at configuring a Prow job to run this as a periodic Prow job. But in chatting with Ben from SIG Testing, Ben Elder from SIG Testing, he suggested this could be it might be more suitable to run this job as a GitHub action and run it periodically that way. So I've kind of looked at both options, and so I'm just interested in feedback from SIG Release in terms of do we as a team have a preference? I'm kind of formulating preferences for the two different choices. I think Prow, with all of the Prow plugins, runs SDLC for the core Kubernetes project, but this report is just a Golang app that uses a GitHub token, scrapes data from test grid, and takes data from the project board for CI signal. So fundamentally, it's simpler. It's reasonably straightforward, and I think a GitHub action could be a good way to run this. So I can see that there are GitHub actions on the kind repo. There are GitHub actions, I think, already in Kubernetes/release. And I'm just interested in feedback from the team as if there's any strong preferences for one implementation choice over the other. And then as an aside, the other thing I would say is that once we make that implementation decision and I get that cranked out and the team approves it, we would welcome feedback on report content. We'd welcome feedback on future steps that we are considering looking at. So I just want to air this out and see if anyone has any feedback. On the agenda, I've linked to the issue where I've discussed this, kind of summarizing what I've just said now. So if you have immediate feedback, I'll take that now. If you want to give considered feedback, there's the issue linked on the agenda. So that's pretty much it, Stephen.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Give me a second. Let me just, so I'm on a new computer and can't do screen sharing, or else I would have the meeting notes up. So let me just make sure Sasha is co-host, and then he can take care of that. Sasha just granted you. So to be clear about the Prow versus GitHub actions are running, one-shot apps and stuff in Prow, totally doable as well. It's just I guess
you stick decorations true into your Prow job, and it for one key and one value, it gets heavy,
Yeah, no, and so I agree. I think there's a bit of cognitive burden for trying to know the right things to do to Prow or with Prow to make that stuff go. I am completely fine with GitHub Actions. We use GitHub Actions on a few of our repos. The question would be what permissions does this token require?
Yes. So broadly, it's at the moment it's read only. I'll need to confirm that with Leo, but I'm reasonably sure it's read only.
Yeah. Right now we don't need any special permissions, but we have one issue open that we want to also log the report in the future in a new repository or somewhere else. This needs to be also discussed. Maybe we can also do this now. That we want to store the information of the report so we can have the history and so on. And if that's the case, then we would need access to a repository that we, I don't know, open the PR or push directly.
So I think when we were initially discussing this, I did mention that I don't really care to have the reports in Slack. The default setting should be writing this to a repo.
Yeah.
Right. If we want to then say that this thing has been merged to the repo, here's the updated report for the week, and post that in Slack, that's fine. But the default should not be Slack posting. The default should be writing to a repo. So the data is somewhere, right? Somewhere that's easier to find than Slack search, right? So that's one piece. So the which is now available on Netflix now. So GitHub token wise, I'm hearing read only, which is completely fine. We can lock down the GitHub actions. The right to the repo is slightly elevated, but not really, right? We can have it act on behalf of one of the Kate's release bot or a lower privileged bot, and don't. I would hazard to like not write any of this logic, because we already have things that create PRs in repos, and we can point you to the right libraries and stuff like that to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the yeah, this is an iterative step, and the periodic running is the next natural iteration, and then there's Leo is kind of hatching plans for world domination with this. So we would bring the next steps in terms of doing analytics on process and tracking things and so on and so forth. We may need a design session on taking the next big steps with that, because there may be a little bit of duplication of work already done, Leo, and we may need to look at what Kettle brings to the table in terms of scraping data from GCS buckets and where that data is stored. But at a high level, hand wavy at the moment, there's a lot of mechanical stuff that's done in CI in relation to PROW and job results and so on and so forth. And what's unique about this report is that it captures the manual effort of the CI signal team. And yeah, that's hard to capture elsewhere. So there is value add here. But then when we go to make the analytical steps, we might do a bit of a survey to see if we're duplicating any effort, you know. So, but yeah, next step, just get this thing running periodically and updating a repo with the results.
And process-wise, since we were kind of solved on PROW versus GitHub Actions, the one request would be, when you write the actions, make sure they are, you know, what we'll usually do for pre-submits is, I mean, really any job is that there should be a method for running the job, regardless of what environment you're in, right? So whether it's a bash script or a quick go something or a, you know, make target or something, right? The way we run in the GitHub action should be identical to how you run out, you know, save for environment changes, should be roughly identical to how it's going to be running in the action.
Okay.
Or how you would run it locally, rather.
All right. So kind of, yeah, record it in a sort of a runtime agnostic kind of way, so that you run it one place is the same as running it another. I get you. Yeah. At the moment, I was leaning towards just running it on a Golang 118 container and doing it that way. And I'll let me look at that and make it so that whether it's command line or whether it's via the action, it is, I suppose, yeah, equivalent.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal, you know, what I'm thinking is ideal state. Like if we want to run as an action, ideal state is really, you know, say using Seth Fargo Go GitHub Actions or something like that, turning this into a GitHub action, and doing basically. So I mean, you can do action testing with like ACT locally if you wanted to, right? But really, this tool should be packaged as a container image. And the entry point is the command.
Okay.
Right.
Alrighty.
And then run the container, hit the command, and then call it a day.
Okay. Lovely. Yeah, that's great feedback, Stephen. Thank you for that. Because it's not quite how I've done it. It's close, but it's not quite. But I'll do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And also open to feedback. I'm just riffing right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, you know, that's reasonable. Like, I mean, because essentially, like, there's two important themes there. One is to row in behind how SIG Release already works, and do as it's already done, so that it's for maintainability reasons. Yeah, no, that's great feedback. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
All right. Any more comments on this one before we scooch along? And Mohammed is mentioning in the chat that you can get GitHub Action stuff to interact with Google Cloud to persist stuff there. So that is kind of related to what Rob was saying about the Kettle interactions. There's a swath of data that is written all over the place for test grid currently, and we want to make sure that, like, if it's possible to just read from an existing bucket and kind of munge all of that stuff together, then that's a nicer solution than writing to another bucket when the data already exists.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something to look at.
Yeah. There's other thoughts on that I want to get done in relation to the latest Flakes JSON. I don't know if you're aware of that. I want to improve the query for that to record time of query. And I want to give that over to the SIPI team as well, just to have them put some nice UI in that. So I'll talk to them about that in the reliability working group, which I'll be attending those meetings coming up.
Cool. And as you mentioned, definitely iterative. This is, the quick and dirty of whatever gets this functioning, and on a periodic basis, and we can sprinkle the sugar on top later.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Baby steps, reviewable baby steps. Yeah.
Time check, Stephen. We have like 20 minutes and we have 3 more.
Yeah, I was just about to say, let's jump into the next thing. Thank you for the time check. Leo, you are next up on the list.
Yeah, just a small one. So this is from the retros. I'm not sure who brought this up, but anyways, there was the feedback that we might, or the idea of adding this orientation, inclusive speaker orientation, to every release team sub-team lead preparation. So right now it's just for the leads and lead shadows. If that would be a good idea also to add this to role leads.
I'm in favor personally.
I think some of the context on this one is in regards to just kind of overall the inclusiveness of regard, like in selection, just overall how it's very hard to get signal with a lot of the application process. So I think a lot of the driver behind this was, hey, this type of training, because there's so little signal outside of just kind of like, I'm just selecting people from a spreadsheet from a different part of the world, but just trying to create more awareness. And I think that was some of the driver behind, well, let's extend this. Let's try to see if we can kind of increase some of the emotional intelligence around inclusiveness.
And that this is actually one of the reasons that we decided that in addition to all of the SIG release leads, that the release team leads and release team lead shadows should be doing this training as well. So I would agree. I think there's also an element of the continuity for the team, right? As we're looking at folks who are role shadows to role leads to release team lead shadows, and so on and so forth. It is easier to kind of pace with that ramp if you've already done the training. Right, so that's just one thing off the checklist of a year-long, kind of year plus march to that role, if that's something that you're interested in. So I think it does kind of open the door to make that a little easier.
I can update the handbooks to mention it in the, I think, preparation section. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any other comments on that? All right. Veronica, are you on? So Mike, I think yours will be, I think the one after you is faster.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm just I didn't want you to think I was skipping. Is anyone from release managers around outside of Sash and myself? All right, cool. So I'll just read it out. We are working on the branch manager recruiting for 125. The first alpha is coming soon. I believe there is a notional schedule up already, and the schedule will become more filled out as the release marches along. So stay tuned for that, and we'll send updates to the various lists as that happens. Cool. Mike.
Sure. Let me give a little bit of background. As I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, I'm sort of representing CNCF security tag. I'm one of the leads that has been focused on supply chain security generally in the cloud native space. There's a sort of an open proposal for sort of what sorts of projects could the CNCF help to work on applying the best practices white paper that we released about a little over a year ago, as well as a new reference architecture, which was just released at KubeCon Valencia a couple of weeks ago. And so while this sort of proposal was up, Emily Fox from who was the co-chair of the security tag, but her chairship is over. She had mentioned to me that she had a conversation with, I think, Adolfo, that perhaps elements of Kubernetes could be a good place for us to start focusing on. The area she specifically said they discussed was just kind of generally, doing a lot of work to kind of get salsa attestations inside of Kubernetes. That's all good. But what about the parent images that are being used to build Kubernetes? What can we do to sort of secure the supply chain for that? Because then that would also potentially eliminate a whole class of attacks and vulnerabilities. So that is just sort of a little bit of the background, and just wanted to sort of open it up for discussion here. For myself, obviously CNCF is the supply chain working group under the security tag is interested in helping out any way we can to any sort of project, and we're interested in seeing like, hey, is this something that Kubernetes would be interested in? Is it what might the scope look like? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the call with us this week. So I think we need to decide maybe who is doing what in terms of investigation. So over the last year and change, we released a vision and roadmap for SIG Release, which I posted in that thread, that is pretty centered around software supply chain security, right? So kind of shoring up a lot of the things that we've been doing in the past. So that's seeing the image signing being weaved into the image promotion process, and the various the software bill of materials things that have been integrated into the core Kubernetes release process. So there's active work happening, I think, in terms of the base images. There's a previous effort, and I think it's longer tail. We're always doing something and things are never quite done. But the first leg of this securing the base images was around moving the base images over to distroless, and the images that are currently The images that are not on DistroList right now, rather, are right now is just the IP tables image, actually, right? So we produce a Debian IP tables image. We produce a Debian base image that is used for the Debian IP tables image, which is used for kubeproxy, right? The kubeproxy image, right? All of the other core images, API server, controller, manager, scheduler, all of those are on DistroList currently, right? So we've kind of stripped some of the attack surface out there. For the Debian IP tables and kubeproxy, they are the SIG networking. SIG network right now is working on a rewrite of the IP tables wrapper from the current bash script and into Go. So there's an open PR for that on a repo, and once that is in place, I think that puts us in a spot to move over to DistroList as well for the kubeproxy image, right? The etcd image still uses the Debian base. There are several images within the community that also use the Debian base. I think one of the tricky things is I think that some of this gets solved with more hands in the pot. Or cooks in the kitchen. I don't know. Was some saying, right? Where there could be more communication, there could be more cadence around like how, when, why do we update these images? When we're updating them, it's usually like, hey, I just saw someone announce CV about blah. I'm not sure if it is something that definitively affects us, but let's patch these images just to be safe. So that's kind of how the process goes right now, which is not a process. So having people kind of work on building something out for that would be useful. There are also other elements where I think it would be helpful to have an exercise of taking the Kubernetes enhancement proposals that we have written and we are currently implementing and overlaying them with the white paper reference architecture on the CNCF level and seeing how those things map. The choice for Salsa was, I think that it was a framework that existed at the time, and it was a good opportunity for us to see. I think what I said in a previous meeting is that none of these things are perfect, and they never will be. This is a starting point. This is a framework within which we can have the discussion. So I think being able to take guidance from the various groups, so CNCF tag security and their guidance, as well as things that are happening on the OpenSSF side, the mobilization plan, the various working groups that are over there, and kind of combining it all. But I think that at least for the SIG release engineering side, we are early adopters for some of these things that are happening right now. So yes, we are still happy to help and will continue to help. I think that we need to sit down and see where it'd be helpful to understand from an external perspective where people see the gaps, and then we kind of move from there.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I also want to just highlight, I could also help out if need be on some of those other things, because from the OpenSSF side, I'm also on the Salsa steering committee. So I think that they kind of all tie in, all these different pieces all tie in quite well to building that sort of better supply chain security picture.
Could I make a suggestion?
For sure.
Yeah, that's
Is it just me? Or is my
We can hear you, Mike, and we can hear you, Rob.
Oh, yeah. The quick suggestion is to make sure that if we develop anything locally on the team, that we audit what's already present on the CNCF landscape, and try and try and do some design thinking to think in terms of this may be for us today, but you know we might want to we might want to productize this effort in some way. And just really, I suppose my concern will be that we need to check for any existing products that are there, and give those products feedback by using them if they exist.
And that was part of the reason for our Salsa adoption as well.
Very good. Yeah.
But the and I also, you know, related to that is I want to make sure that we are not finding solutions in search of problems, I guess, right? We have lots of active stuff in the works, and there is, I think we're moving at a reasonable clip, and on the implementation side. So I want to make sure that we are not grabbing something net new necessarily and saying like, okay, now we got to do this stuff too, without stepping back and recognizing the what's currently on the roadmap. So I think there's a way around this, and I think it starts with how can we overlay what we have or what we're moving towards with what's the guidance and how that compares to, say, Salsa.
And then the flip side then is if we take the lead, then we need to do the marketing as well, so other people know about it. So yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
and I think that, you know, thankfully
Mike will help with that.
Yeah, I was like, thankfully we're not the experts here, so it's a great opportunity to be able to take the guidance from places like Kubernetes SIG security and CNCF tag security and OpenSSF, right?
Yeah, and this will also help us at the security tag better understand where there is actually like implementation challenges in the guidance we might be giving. As well as some of the mapping, because one of the things we also have open is to map. So our, the Salsa guidance is, not as high level as, let's say, NIST, but it is still relatively like technology agnostic and really approach agnostic. It's things largely like, hey, you should not be giving secrets to the to build users. You should only be giving it to the build service, those sorts of things. Whereas I think the CNCF guidance is kind of like a level down below there, like, and here's our guidance around how you would approach implementing that.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I think I think that was the when we were approaching Salsa, one of the first things I said was like, we were like, let's do Salsa, and it's like 4 is off the table. It's not something that is I don't think it's reasonably achievable with the environment that we have, or if you think about open source environments in general, right, where there's no guarantee that you can have a hermetic build environment, right? Like part of our infrastructure is owned by Google, right? So that already, that already like tosses it out of the window. So that was one of the first things that we said on the Salsa implementation. Level 3 is fine. Level 4 is impossible. And we should do similar analysis for the CNCF guidance.
Yeah, and as Salsa even moves to 1.0 in the next few months, Salsa 3's definition is probably going to change a bit.
Yes. So we'll be Salsa v 0.2 level 3 compliant.
Be mindful of SemVer updates also.
Oh, that's that we could we'll need a whole meeting for SemVer.
Oh, that can cause a row. Oh.
But speaking of meeting, we are running towards the end of our time together. Want to make sure that there is time for additional comments around CNCF tag security stuff or anything else that people want to mention before we go.
One quick thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because you were already talking about that. I
Oh.
was just trying to clarify something real quick.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna ask. So, how should I, moving forward, how should I collaborate here?
Continue hanging out with us on the meetings, I think is
Okay.
is one. The SIG release channel on Slack, the mailing list, Kubernetes SIG release at googlegroups.com. The release management channel is where all of the release managers are hanging out with in Slack as well. But I think really the next step is it would be, you know, I post some links around the vision roadmap, as well as the existing KEPs that we're implementing. So it would be, I think it would be helpful to have an external perspective on how those things map out as the next step, if you're fine with taking that action.
Yep, I can take that. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
So real quick, I know you already discussed this, sorry for being late. But for my notes on branch manager for 125, it's like I started recruiting people, but like no one has volunteered yet, except for Leo, that he wants to be shadow, which I think can be arranged. And then the code of the first alpha, just to clarify, is like I was under the understanding that the previous the 124 branch management team had to cut the first alpha. Happy to do it if no one else wants to do it, but I just didn't want to do it. I think you understand. Yeah.
The first alpha is already out. Or it should, well, oh, actually it's not.
Yeah, exactly. So I know there is a schedule already for 125, and I reviewed it before I put that note in. So it's just like a sync thing. I'm happy to push things forward because I have been taking care of patch releases, etc. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, let's plan to do that. The reason for the alpha is to drain content in the branch as soon as it opens.
Yeah.
So we're overdue to do that.
I know.
at
Yes.
this point.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, so I mean, yeah, we're not pointing that at you, right? But like,
no,
I
know,
you know,
because
as
I
a
was not
team,
even
it should
there.
happen.
Yeah,
it should happen as the 124 release was going out.
Yeah.
Or
No, I
immediately
was not
after.
involved in 124. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to take over things if that's necessary. But yeah. Anyway.
Yep. So let's take it to the channel. But yes, it should get done. And we should plan it as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
Awesome. All right. We are at time. Thanks everyone for hanging out today. We will keep you posted on new meeting times, send some notes out, and catch you soon. Later.
Thanks again, everyone.